3, 2. All right, Green Room, episode 3. January 30th, 2021. Sorry for the robotic voice. Maybe I'm not. Mr. Gemini, what's happening, bro?
No, just... Oh, yeah. So, I was just checking out. Canceling all the crap on my phone, so... Wait, hold on.
All right, good. Yeah. No, I just made sure that we're not going to be bothered.
I had a couple things that I just wanted to revisit from our previous episode. Let me get on the mic. Although I notice other times from listening to previous recordings, when I'm over here, it's really not... It's not that bad.
The fact that we're in a better environment...
It's
it's the dynamics of how the microphone actually works. You have to do it by the cage, not by the mic.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. He's learning how to use this equipment. He wasn't an AV nerd back in the day like I was. It's all good.
So all right.
There you go.
So basically, there's
please explain what we're doing, because as we talked, we share this information. We got to share it with them as well.
Trying to come correct. I like to review what we've been doing.
Right, go over the game tapes.
Yeah, and there's some inconsistencies. And I'm just going to bring up off the bat here that if there are some kind of mischievous spirits, if you believe in that kind of thing, that I think their job is to throw my mind off topic as much as possible. So I think we ran into a few instances of that last time we were chatting. Well,
yeah, I was speaking to one of our individuals, one of our listeners, and their statement was, hey, sometimes you all do come off topic. Not that it's a bad thing, because you always come back around.
Derail.
Well, but we don't really derail, because we do come back to it. Like we have, but the problem is there's some things in there as we seem to be. It's like, wait a minute, but I want to hear more about that.
What was that? And
that's that statement that you made, where it's like, hey, as people go over this, they'll be able to be like, hey, are you guys going to go back into that? Well, now that you bring it up, yeah, we are.
So basically, in review, listening to all this, whatever I was doing, I just ended up picking up this book and just writing like little notes in it. So I had my first one, Incomplete Thought. So this was episode 2, roughly 30 and a half minutes into the program.
Oh, for those who want to get technical and go to the exact spot, I dig it. I like it.
Well, there was this whole thing about. I was really tripping over this whole ego definition, which I know at one point in the conversation...
is this the part where I gave you the acronym for it? It was like easing God out or something like that?
It was right after that where I said I made some kind of a empty promise that I was going to...
Why is it got to be an empty promise? What's that?
That I was going to do my best layman's definition of ego. And it just kind of fell apart right after the first part, and I listened, and I'm just like, yeah, that's that little monster. I don't know where he came from, but he just he took my idea and he just took off. I didn't see him go. Did you see him?
Yeah, the squirrel. See that squirrel? That's man. He's woo.
So anyway, it's bound to happen from time to time. There's the spirits that be. They like to play games with my head, so.
Past programming, some of us would call this, right? So that's your own demons that you've allowed in.
Oh, well, they don't want me to talk about this. I mean, that's the thing, because this is, right?
Maybe they do. Because then if you talk
definitely
about it, it gets you more tricked into it, right?
So anyhow.
Go ahead.
So I spent a little bit of time for myself thinking about what I would consider my definition for ego when I use it in context. And then... I didn't Webster's or nothing, but just using my phone, I just looked up the definition just to see what that said, and then I wrote down...
Get a few sources, in a sense. You did your research.
Right, I put down the two what I consider the most pertinent versions of definition for that. And so anyway, thinking about it, my definition goes as such. In the conversation, we were talking about that time period between lives where your essence, your soul is now plucked out from the body,
when you were all a part of the all,
and you're a part of the all. And I think the whole conversation just fell apart after that. My apologies. That was the beginning of it. That was to try and put your mind in that whole idea. But the soul in between lives is connected to the all at that point. And at the state of oneness, and this comes back around to what I keep trying to say, the state of oneness is actually an ego killer. Like it crucifies your persona.
And I think
Like
that's where you're being egocentric, right? Is that what you mean?
Right. Well, yeah. The whole idea behind how I want to operate within the confines of the show is.
So you're talking about the difference being a part of the all or being a part of the one, meaning like you can either be all inclusive as it is, or you're just by yourself in this.
By my personal definition of not to be an egoist when it comes to the show.
Right.
Well, yeah. I would.
Well, I mean, is in general as well, because I mean that's the extension. But yeah. That's. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding what your expression is, so that.
So really, right now, I'm just trying to define, to my mind, what the ego is. So anyway, cool. The soul in between lives, it gets into this state where it when in that state of oneness, which you can reach during your lifetime. I haven't yet, but.
In this lifetime that you're aware of.
That I'm aware of. There's a state that you can reach, a state of connectedness, a state of oneness, nirvana, spoke of in every different,
Yeah, there's 30 different definitions for consciousness or snow, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So however you define it.
But that state is the ego killer.
Right.
Okay, so if you imagine coming into a new body, the new ego develops out of the attachment to the new body. The evolution of consciousness from associations with how you identify yourself. The ego is developed as a result of a perception of experience and how and what you identify with. This is still my definition. Experience.
Okay.
Experience creates your perception of the structure and function of the cosmos, creating for each individual a set of rules as limitation that creates a matrix through which we view reality. That matrix is the ego.
Okay. I can see that. So you're telling that it's basically a construct at that point that kind of engulfs you as the consciousness, in a sense.
I mean, like trying to wrap your mind around that whole concept of that you that gets plucked out from the body and that you're now in that oneness state.
Right.
The association and the attachment to anything that was your previous self is meaningless.
What? See, I have a problem when you say meaningless, because I think everything has meaning. So I don't like.
No, it has meaning, but there's no
grand scale. There's not a huge. Most likely,
there's no attachment to it any greater than attachment to anything else at this point, because you're.
That I can agree to.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
That it's not that it's minimized. Everything's maximized, but the thing is, the landscape becomes. At that point.
Well, it does modify the understanding of your
we're not going to
construct.
go into what the landscape does, because there's all kinds of literature all over the place. I'm not even going to say just scriptural.
Dude, bro, I'm going to be honest. You're getting like super metaphorical with your statements.
Well, ego's a deep topic for me. All right, so that's the end of my definition. I'll just give you the basic, and then we can move on. Okay, so
can you give me the 30-second elevator version? So like can you shorten that down? Give me like a 5 to 7 word definition of what you would say ego is.
Ego is the representation of your attachment to your body and everything that means.
I like that. I can agree to that.
Does that make sense?
Well, because, all right, so now we as humans, right, we, have this built-in aggression because, I mean, that's a DNA of, Darwinism. We had to be aggressive in order to survive, right? Like, we had to be physically, right. Yeah. So we had to be physically aggressive. We had to do damage. Okay, so that's kind of like that thing that as lives have gone by, we're attached to that. Like, that's a thing that's just built into us. So even on a physical construct of this world... not even just the spiritual world. So it's even built into us as human bodies. So as your consciousness swaps from body to body, it's almost like it's built in a sense. So that's why I'm like, I can really understand where you're coming from, because like no matter what you're looking at, there's always going to be that.
But I mean, so like if you were to just use the definition that you had before, where you get taken out, and then before you get put into a new body, you get your memory wiped. And
right.
I said it doesn't necessarily have to look that way. because all those memories would seem like such a distant other universe at that point when you get squeezed back out of the uterus into life again. The experience itself is forces you into this new body. Put it that way. Forces you to begin this journey of creating an ego. I mean, and I couldn't say when it begins, but I would think it's at some point after conscious attention begins, I guess.
Well, so then, if I may, to me, what it sounds like, because I think you and I, you know, again, as usual, I state you and I agree on pretty much everything. The only time you and I seem to differ is the semantics, how we would express it, you know, the definitions and words we would use to make that statement. I made the correlation of, let's say, hey, this is a video game, right? Which, because I had this discussion with my younger today, and this is how I broke it down, because it was the thing that she understood. So say it's like Grand Theft Auto, right? Where you can just like, bing, it's a lifetime that you get to live. This is what
you were saying. What was it, episode 1 or 2? Well, it wasn't 2. Well, anyway.
I don't know if I spoke on this, because this was what happened today.
I'm sorry, please.
Oh, yeah, no, this is literally what happened today. So this is my newest frame of mind understanding of it. If you, because, yeah, we'll get back to the whole, like, the Pizza Hut video game thing that so I expressed it as like, all right, cool. So you as Grand Theft Auto, like, you get to have to like live a life, or The Sims, or, you know, you have this video game where you step in, make a life, make it exist, have a lifetime, whether it's, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 5 years, whatever the deal is. But it's a lifetime, right? That individual that you played, your avatar, is born, does its thing, game is over. That's a lifetime, right? Doesn't matter if it's 2 days, 3 weeks, 5 years, 2 centuries, whatever. What if it really is like that? Like, so say, you know, hey, you and your personal best, whatever, like your partner, whatever you want to, you know, state it is, the two of you feel that there's this crazy, awesome, amazing connection. What if the two of you are like on a date and you're at a roller rink or a Pizza Hut and you're like, hey, you as light and love entities are like, let's go play a video game together. And you go and play that video game. And you have that lifetime, which could be, again, a couple days, weeks, you know, months, centuries, whatever. And then, the game's over. And then, okay, cool, let's go get something to eat and drink and blah, blah, blah. Like you're saying, that in between each life, like, right? So tell me this doesn't sound like a pretty cool idea.
So you're saying like the game within the game within the...
Well, but so
or, what... I mean, is that where you're going with it, or...
Well, no.
Okay, because that's what I'm seeing now, too.
So here's... this is the further explanation is, so you get individuals who are... you know, again, on a date, hanging out with their friends, whatever, and they just keep playing these games and they're hanging out. Because you as an entity, right, just energy, there is no bills. There's no, like, I need roof over my head. You're just a part of everything. You're just energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what this consciousness is we can describe it as it's literally just like, maybe it's a molecule. We don't know, but there's just that little bit of energy that is the consciousness, that light and love, that piece that is you, truly you, no matter what form you're in, whether you come back as a dog, a human, a spider, your consciousness is that piece, right? So what if you're like doing these video games over and over and over again, and that's just the thing, nobody ever really knows about it, but once you get on the other side, because you're just all chilling out doing nothing, like you ain't got shit to do all day, right? You ain't got work, you just be, you're literally just being. So why wouldn't you be like, let's make a game, shall we? And see what happens. Because we get to be free thinkers, right? This really coincides with that whole like universal basic income kind of a thing where it's like, hey, if we didn't have to work all day and we had enough money that we could literally just everybody, you know, on a truly communistic, socialistic, Marxism, blah, blah, where everybody is just like even, or at least even opportunity, equal opportunities we talked about, right? The thing that we would do is probably be more creative. We'd have greater creative outputs. We'd have more science because it's like, well, I don't have to go frickin' schlep drinks or pump gas or fix cars or, you know, be a doctor. I don't have to dump trash I don't got to do nothing because I ain't got to pay no bills because money doesn't exist. So what if in that kind of a construct, now all of a sudden it's like, it really is a game.
I mean, and you could always pull that I mean, and I'm sure we've all had that thought. Like, is this really reality? Is this just a game? Just to push my buttons, just to see what happens to me, just to, like. But it's funny because you're having this conversation talking about Sims, which is honestly,
this is with my daughter.
I gotta stop
right?
saying honestly because in review it seems like we say that way too much. But
I think I started that. That's my totally my bad.
We have to stop that. We have to find
that.
another word to displace that.
I'm gonna be dope with you right now.
Word.
There it is.
Oh, I hate when this happens. Oh, anyway, but that reminds me. I had more.
Oh, you lost your thought.
I had
That'll
more.
happen, people.
I had
Keep
more
us on
topics.
track.
I wanted to.
No, he wants to go back to the book. All right, cool.
Oh, so
ego. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I never read the actual definition that I looked up, did I? So.
Oh no! You only expressed yours, and then I correlated to the expression that I made because you were talking about how it's like that in between, and so all that stuff. So yeah.
Right. So I wanted to finish that,
right.
And I have. Yeah, I finished that, and then I have one more thing that was kind of misspoke last time, and then actually two more things that were misspoke. Editorial. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway,
this is the green room. This is what's allowed.
Well, yeah, and then.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I'll pass the baton. You can say something. So a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance is the basic ego definition that I got, and then it says, like, for the psychoanalyst, it says the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious. It is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Very basic.
But in psychology, that's so you have the id, the ego, and the superego, and it's like the id and the superego are the two extremes of like, I'm going to be perfect Joe, like, what do you want, Ned Flanders, right? I'm going to be Ned Flanders. And then the other side is like, it's like, I'm going to be Hitler, right? And then the in-between is the balance. It's the ego. So that's how psychology expresses the ego. It's the balance between extreme good and extreme bad, and your choices that you do.
Is all that terminology, isn't that Freudian, though? Is that?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, in nature.
Like the id, the ego, the super id, whatever.
Either that or Jung. I forget which. I know.
Well, I mean, Jung followed, and I'm like, we're going to totally geek out here for a minute, but...
We don't have to.
And I'm really not that knowledgeable about this stuff.
No, we don't have to. We can stay on topic.
But Jung actually kind of studied a lot of the stuff and used him kind of as a stepping stone on some of his...
Most did.
Further, yeah.
Because he was the first to truly, like, start to be... He was the first to go mainstream. Let's put it that way, I guess. Like, that's the easiest way to understand it. He was the first that all of a sudden it was like his information was out there.
Well, Jung's interesting because he brings up a whole other aspect, and I don't want to derail you by bringing that up. But
oh no,
I'm pretty sure that terminology was mostly Freudian.
Well, but so regardless, that's what you're saying. There's that functional, definition. It's the balance between extreme good and extreme bad. Like that's the easy way of saying it. That's what ego is. Yeah, if you look at it from psychology, again, you have the id, the superego, and the ego. The ego is the balance in between. That's what, like, my tattoos are about, basically. Honestly. I know, we can't say that word in there.
You can't see it, so, but I don't know. That was the first part, That was just right off the top of my head what I would consider the ego. So it's basically, it's all that stuff you wrap around your soul. Because your soul is not, your soul is not Philly D.
I said this to the child today. I literally told her, I was like, your consciousness is not being, and I said her name, and she's like looking at me. I was like, my consciousness is not me. I was like, I am this, I am this entity.
That's it right now. That is your name. I am.
What? Oh,
that is consciousness. Right. That,
in a sense,
I am. Like, you don't have to have a name. You don't have to have a title. There's no... I am, because anything that comes after that is actually a limiting factor. That's an interesting way to think about it. If you can say I am, but anything that actually comes after that is something that can limit you.
Well, can limit you, or can also possibly allow you to be further expressed,
or focus you. But there's
I
always.
I want to go back to you always have that negative connotation built into you. That's why.
No, I actually got that from that book. I am.
Yeah,
there's something about once you go beyond that and try to define, you're now creating an I am, what he calls an I am statement, that a lot of people say subconsciously and don't realize, like, you know, I'm not worthy of having someone love me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like he talks a lot about that whole, those are the limiting factors. It's not the world around you, but it's the fact that you start off with this matrix of what you, like how I'm trying to explain the ego, this matrix of reality that rests between your senses and the outside world, that makes you see things. We could both look at the same exact thing, and I could see something different than you. Could see something negative where you see something positive.
Right. It was so okay. So now, to me, the ego then is, because I always see it as not listening to the higher to be energy, positivity, whatever you want to, divine. Doesn't matter how you want to label it. When you're in the flow, when you're a part of the ether around you and you're fulfilling your purpose, when you are literally in your flow, regardless of sometimes things seem like blocks or, go-aheads, or doesn't matter. When you're in that flow, things literally, as time, which is irrelevant, goes along, as moments happen, it literally just becomes these things of calm and peace. And that's when you start, at least for me, getting into those statements where I say, I am peace, I am calm, I am joy, I am love.
It's funny when you bring up time, because this is, and I, like I was saying earlier, I haven't had the illumination experience, but I've had moments where, and like when you're outside of yourself, you go into a state where you're, like you said, you're hyper focused, but not on any. You know what I'm saying? Like,
some people would call that like a transcendent moment,
it's
or
more
out of body moment, astral projection, right?
Like, you're focused on your breathing, you're relaxed, you're trying to go to your happy place, whatever it is you call it, and you have that. What I say is what marks you reaching that is a complete loss of time. Because what happens is you're going into what's considered a timeless state when you get there. Timelessness is the essence of the divine.
Well, yeah, and see, this is why I enjoy Einstein. There was a special that I watched about him, and when he was trying to express the truer sense of, like, the theory of relativity, right? E equals MC squared is not actually, like, that's not an actual equation. You know what I mean? It was him attempting to express what his realization was of relativity, right? Which and I'm going to paraphrase. I might butcher it a little bit, but hopefully I get this out. If you are light, right? If you are a piece of energy, so our consciousness is a true soul of light and love, right? Energy, right? Well, as that energy, you can move at the speed of light, right? So then when you look at light, as you travel at the same speed as it does, it no longer looks like light. It's now just a piece of light and energy. So it's not like this streak, it's not this illumination, it's just this single focused component that just is light. Because it's about the perception. Because think about that. If light's moving at us at light speed, you flick it on, whoop, the lights come on so much quicker than your eyes can even realize because of its perception, right? Because we read it, like 60 cycles per second is what our eyes, ingest at, something like that. So the fact that the speed of light, breaks that barrier to, we know what, it seems basically instantaneous, right? Well, but what if you, as actual light and energy as a consciousness, is moving at the same rate, if not faster? What would that look like?
Well, it would appear as if there was no motion whatsoever.
Well, it would either be still or possibly look like it's going backwards.
Oh, I see what you're... Mm-hmm.
So in all honesty, the theory of relativity is really more about what is your perception of the construct in that moment. It's
like that thought, if you were on a light train, traveling through the galaxy.
Yeah.
And you've got this giant, like billion candle light on the front that just shines out in front of you to show you where you're going.
Yeah, I think that was
If you
the
reach the
further
point
extent.
where you're actually traveling faster than light, it would be as if there was no light in front of you at all.
Correct. Yeah. That's I think that's the further.
It would
point
go
of,
dark because it's back there somewhere.
Wait, it's not even back there somewhere. It doesn't even exist yet. Right, but that's also if you're basing this within the perception of the fourth dimension with this time, right? So it's all relative.
Exactly.
Which that's why I feel like the bigger point to all that was it's basically no matter what it is, if your perception is this, that's what you're built within. That's what you're going to understand it by,
All right, so I just have two more quick things out of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then I'm going to close the thing so I can just stop looking at it. So
I feel
anyway,
like this is a decompress. I love it. But get it out.
So back to the entire topic of conversation that revolved around fungus, and I was trying to think of.
If I may, so we're done
term.
with ego. We're now onto the fungus, or is this a crossover?
We can go back to ego. I just wanted to finish this last.
I'm making it definitive because people.
Yeah.
I don't know, so people on the other side probably don't know. So that was all of your statement of ego. You're now getting into.
Oh, that was all I've
different
written
component.
down. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then okay, good.
Yeah.
Just so I'm aware.
So yeah, we
There
can
was no
absolutely go
segue.
back to it.
There was no segue. That's all.
I just wanted to get this stuff out so that we can not be worried
decompress.
about.
I felt
yeah.
like. Good.
So anyway,
Digame.
I was listening to the of course the old recording, and we were talking about all this stuff and talking about the tiny little nodes, the tiny little
The neural connection.
tubule structures that come off of the actual mother plant for the mushroom,
Right.
which would be a truffle, I guess, that part that grows underneath.
All right. That was equated to the neural connection.
The term I was looking for was mycelium. So I had to look it up, so I didn't feel like a complete idiot. So those fine little filaments that come off, and form this because we were using that. I was using that to try and explain how mushrooms have a network much like our own neural network.
Right. Well,
And it's because of if you look at the way that the mycelium line up, that it gives you a lot of that. It kind of looks like a neural network. It really, But anyway, last thing was there was something about the conversation about different types of tobacco.
Oh, right. Yeah. I remember this on our phone call earlier when we were talking. Yeah.
And I looked it up again just to make sure I had it right, but it was like they actually both have nicotina in the name, but then one is Nicotina rustica, which was the one that I was referring to.
Right. Well, because they would be the same genus, or I think.
Which is funny because it says it actually has a much higher concentration of nicotine in it than Nicotina tabacum or tabacus or whatever that is.
Well, because if I want to understand, truer, rawer tobacco is actually, if previous conversation we agreed to this, and I was already under the assumption, is slightly hallucinogenic.
Yes.
Well, or not hallucinogenic so much as psychoactive.
I think it has to be.
I think that's the more appropriate term. I think it's psychoactive to the point that there could be hallucinations, which would be part of like the sweat lodge idea, like peace pipe, blah blah blah, like having visions, and so that was kind of a way to dismiss, but I think honestly explain.
Yeah, I don't think it was powerful. I think it was mild. I think it was very mild.
Well, correct. Well, so that's the idea of like, so if now you take the fact that you're smoking tobacco, but you're puffing it out in a sweat lodge that's now, like 120 degrees, 99% humidity.
Yeah, this movie, by the way, if we're not, yeah.
And you're puffing tough on this, true wacky tobacco, psychoactive tobacco.
Well, and he was I'm sorry, we're talking about the character, the guy, I'm sorry.
I was speaking in double sense, so I mean, in reference to Last Shaman, but also, indigenous people of the Americas. Dude, sweat lodges is like real deal, and then you talk about having waking dreams or visions. To me, it's like, well, but So if you're turning up the heat, your body's already under stress. You want to literally check out. Your body wants to go into shock and shut down. And if you're given this alternate, perspective to just kind of remove yourself from your body, it just seems natural that you would want to just be in that.
Well,
flow.
yeah, you're placing a high number of stressors on your body, which actually, at some point, it goes beyond the point of physical and becomes psychological.
Yeah.
And that's where I was saying, yet again, that's another expression of, a people trying to come together to create this separation between themselves and their freaking id, to get away from their ego, to get away from and be able to look at themselves from the outside. Because it's not until you have the ability to do that you can basically transcend your own issues and the issues of your people. I mean, these rights that Native Americans used to take, and a lot of people would say peyote, but apparently peyote wasn't in use until like the last 1,000 years of Native Americans. But they did use...
There's evidence that peyote didn't come into the Northern American tribes until 1,000 some-ish. Yeah. But
there wasn't
doesn't
actually...
mean...
Yeah.
But that's another thing is, so just because...
But they had other rituals. I mean, you've seen the Sundance rituals that they used to do where they'd actually hook themselves to the posts and they'd bake themselves in the sun, and they were hanging, their body was hanging basically by a couple small muscle groups right in the chest or from the back. Like, they do all these different, and all that was the same kind of thing. It was just looked at from a different perspective. It was basically to tax your body to the point where it becomes a psychological schism.
Well, it's the same thing as Shaolin monks.
And like you said, you either find this compassionate center or you lose your freaking mind. There's really not a whole lot of in between.
No, there is no in between. It was you either karate do or you karate don't. Safe, right? You karate guess so. Just like Crave. Yeah, no. That's why it's it goes back to our faint of heart conversation where I was like, if you're gonna look inward, yeah, dude, it's either all or nothing. Because if you don't, then it might not be good. So you just be weary. If you're gonna do it, hunker down, get some good friends, trust the process, don't rush the process. Dr. E.T., I love that. But dude, just go with the flow, believe in it, it will work out.
I mean, that was the purpose of the ayahuasca experience. That was the purpose of in a lot of cases, like more mushrooms, because it was a naturally occurring, but there was, like I said, ergot may have played a role at some point too in these different Aboriginal cultures, like the different tribal rituals that they would do.
Which that reminds me, so I was I'd watched a thing where it was talking about the stoned ape theory, which is well, so you had expressed it to me as
well, that's what we're talking about, though, just so we're not talking about men. We're talking about, the missing link was that's where that whole term came from, was this 10 million year period of time where we basically cranked up the evolutionary speed like tenfold. Like, how did this happen? How did we get this expanded brain pan, like we were saying, all that stuff?
Dude, just opening up your awareness within your physical body.
But this was something that happened, I think, as Terrence McKenna was saying, as the tribal chimpanzees, like the started coming down out of the trees and going across the savannah, and basically had to forage for food on the ground, that quite possibly they would have come across mushrooms. They were pretty common.
Right.
And anywhere where you've got cattle grazing, which in that area were...
Well, at that point, you're
naturally
talking...
prominent. They were just everywhere.
Zebra, wildebeest, I mean, all that kind of stuff, right?
I think that specifically it tends to be more prevalent with certain cattle species, which I think is why there's such a repeated instance of different cultures actually worshiping
like ovine or bovine, one of those,
right?
Hooved animal.
But I mean, I suppose in some places it would be a goat too, and the goat would be venerated. You know.
Well, because it doesn't matter what the animal per se, other than the fact that it would have been a grazer and a pooper in the area.
I mean, everybody looks at the ram's head and they think like satanic ritual or something like that, but you know, it's...
I don't.
Well, get it. Some people do. I don't know. Anyhow, so that was the end of this book for now, and then. But yeah, I think I'm gonna going forward. In review, or even during the show. Actually, I should leave this open. Even in the show, when I'm thinking of something and you're talking, that way I don't have those little hiccups like we had, where this little gremlin comes out of nowhere and apparently steals my thoughts.
Well, but it sounds like, at least from this, what we're doing right now, that as we had stated prior, we're going to have this ability to kind of come back, which a further point of, you know, as we started the green room part here, you had made the statement of like coming back around again, which, so previous conversation to come to this, you had stated, hey, I really want to kind of address whether it was green room statement or I'm telling you spot, where you're like, hey, I want to, you know, kind of make the things right, you know, adjust everything and kind of, and I
come correct.
Well, right, but I made that statement of that it's like, all right, cool. If we do that, then we should probably do it in the green room, because that, to me, would stem the conversation, which is the whole point of the green room, right? It's that pre-conversation of us getting to the point where we're like, oh, okay, cool. You know what? This is some serious. We gotta take the break, come back, and then do I'm telling you. So I felt it was a great idea of like, hey, cool. If you want to cleanse the air, as it were, like let it all out, the green room's the perfect spot, because if there is a component that all of a sudden it's like, hey, we really need to dig into that, let's make that the next episode.
Now you were saying something, so you were coming out with some criticism at some point, because that's the stuff I'm really craving
critiques.
Right now. Critiques. You know what? Here we go with the verbatim. You know, whatever. All right. It doesn't bother me to say it that way, but if it bothers you, I'll say critique.
Thank you.
I like the critique.
I appreciate your positivity.
So,
thank you.
There was something about critique earlier, and you were saying about subjects dropping out. Was there other stuff that came up in the, just out of curiosity?
Overall quality as far as audio, our current setup, which actually is we've modified. So hopefully we're going to find out shortly. We slightly modified our surroundings to create a more absorbent.
He made a fort,
area.
All right.
Kind of, sort of.
He made a fort.
I kind of, sort of did.
You know, Dad over here.
Yeah, no pillows involved, but I totally teched out like a dad would do. I agree.
He made a fort.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be more than just it works. I think it's really going to add a great quality. You know, I personally, as a sound guy, you know, an old AV dude, is like, I want to have the best quality possible. So if there's little things I can do that can make a massive difference, even if it just seems that slightly bit minor, but it totally works, I want to do it because I want to create the greatest listening pleasure possible. The content may not be great, but if you can at least listen to it, be like, well, at least they sounded nice. So no matter what, there's going to be at least some positives always coming into any episode.
The greatest. I want to be the greatest. Greatest of all time. Well, you want to be like, Cassius Clay, or do you want to be like Donald Trump?
I want to be I want to be the best me.
I'm sorry.
To the greatest potential that I can actually obtain within this life.
You know, just and that's it's all about coming correct, man. It's all about, like, what'd you say? What's your word?
Impeccable.
Impeccable with your.
Oh, I love impeccable. say impeccable. I love that word, impeccable. Because to be impeccable, as so those of you out there have not read, I'm going to say it for you slowly twice. The 4 agreements. One more time. The 4 agreements. Quick backstory. We have the 10 Commandments in standard, you know, Catholicism, Christianity, whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, standard today, we have the 10 Commandments, right? There's standardized rules that we live by, whether it's like Islam or Judaism, or like there's a set rules.
Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, there's a set rules where it's just like, come on, bro, these should be no-brainers. Okay. So there's a shaman down south tries to take all the South American, a little bit of like into Mexico and stuff so a little bit of North America, but mostly South American. So all the religions,
a little Santeria in there, a little.
all of the religions. He studied. He had groups like they went to town on this. They attempted to take all of the different belief systems and find congruent ideas. And he's kind of expecting, like, all right, 5, 7, 10, 12, whatever. Like, because, we already have the 10 Commandments. So there's a relativity.
Well, he literally created 4 pillars.
Well, but that's the thing is, they went through it so hard and heavy, so well, that they literally just nipped it down to 4 agreements. And that's why they called that. Because if you can agree
they
to
freebased it. Like they
took
bit. everybody's religious activities and thought processes.
Dude, I just had the Cookie Monster in the stall. Don't judge me. But yeah, so they took what should have dwindled down to expectations of like 5, 7, 12 something. They came up with 4, and they call them agreements because again, if you can agree to these ideas, pretty sure your life's going to be a heck of a lot better, bro. And one of them is be impeccable with your word. Now, here's the deal.
Number 1 is just, come on.
Well, but this is why this and
right off the bat,
this is why it's expressed. This is why be impeccable with your word is number 1, because it sounds easy, right? Be impeccable.
No, it's really difficult. Yeah.
Well, because here's why. In order for you to be impeccable with your word, you also have to be impeccable with your honesty or your words with yourself, because it all starts from the inside out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't admit to yourself, if you can't be truly open and honest with yourself, your words will not be impeccable. They'll be impeccable adjacent, but they ain't. That's like 3 spots down. You ain't actually going to be impeccable. So just to be impeccable with your word, you have, because then you have to. And this is where I get into the whole positive negative thing. Because when I started to truly embrace these 4 agreements, my word attempting to be impeccable, all of a sudden I had to find a truer sense of balance. So it's not even that I use only positive words. It's the simple fact that I use either null, 0, to positive. That's my difference. So my negativity in my expressions I attempt to be is basically 0. So it's a a PC statement, spin it, whatever you want to call it.
You got all the fat. All of it.
Oh, I know, which sucks because I love the fat. I really do. As a chef, the fat is some flavor, it's texture. Anyway.
But you make that real,
But that's the thing about being impeccable is, you got to lean the mix. You really just got to come correct always. Not some of the time, not most of the time, all the time. That's being impeccable. So that's just the first of the 4 agreements, which is the most important. So those of you who don't know about it, read this book. There's a quick Cliff Note style one that's like 30 pages, one that's like 120 pages. It's a quick read. It is beautiful. The anecdotes are amazing. The principles are phenomenal. Maybe we'll get into that as an episode at some point. But so I love the fact that we took all of those episodes that we've been doing. We found a way for you, because as I was saying, when you were starting to do it, I was like, this is a decompress. I feel like you got to correct, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you got to come correct, which is even, more, because now you, not only did you rectify, but you've also been in a level where you're like, this is where I really want to come from, which me is like, I think you're obviously pushing towards that positivity.
I spent some time thinking about these things, after the fact.
That's what self-reflection is.
Well, exactly. But, and it's, it's even better if you have a recording of yourself to listen to. And it's not egotistical at all, because I'm looking at this thing and breaking it down with a fine-tooth comb,
If anything, humility.
Oh, well, yeah. Because then I'm like, I got to be really careful about what I say. Now I'm insulting whole countries.
Yeah, you did. Slightly, not really. Again, Canada, we love you. I've been there many times. I love the people. I love the places. Oh, it's a great place.
I just put my foot right in my mouth and didn't even realize it.
No, you shoved it in there. You're like, mouth, foot, meat, what's up?
And then if you were really listening, I proceeded to go further and then went, what am I doing?
Well, but and I think shortly thereafter, it was like within 20 minutes, you're like, I think I'm done. I know I'm done. We're done here. I was just say, we're done. We're good.
He's like,
Yeah, you were fading. Yeah, the train was definitely dying.
Anyhow, but we're just getting warmed up, and I think this is a good place to break because we're kind of in a lull, and we got some good stuff out already with my notes.
Yes, you did. I'll agree to that.
And
as well as this, I think this is a great tech check. We get to see how the new setup is. Because again, I totally dadded it up because I mean that's what I do.
he built for it.
Dude, it's a bomb fort because I think it makes a massive difference on the recording quality. We're gonna find out. We're gonna break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna have some serious. Dude, we ain't even getting into it. We just warming up right now.
We're just touching the surface, man. We'll be right back.
I'm just lighting the fire. We're gonna lay down next to it in a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's gonna happen.
Is it getting hot in here?
I thought it already was. All right, well, dude,
You
it's
gotta talk in that real mellow, like late night talk show. Well,
you gotta go deeper. You gotta go deep. That's what he said. That's what she said. That's what they all said. Anyhow, it's best if we go deep. I'm just saying. Yeah, I agree. This is a great spot. We're gonna take a break. Thanks for listening. We'll check you in a minute.
just reach over and push that other.
Yeah, I know. Just go ahead and push that other button. Just when this stops, there it is. I'm telling you, right?